Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hello fellow geeks and welcome back to Running Geek Girl. My name is Heather and I am glad you are here today. As of the recording of this video, I just ran the Route 66 half marathon in Tulsa just yesterday, and so I thought I would share my experiences with that. But first of all, if you are not subscribed to the channel, make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below so you don't miss any of the running content that I have coming out all the time. If this is not your first time here, then welcome back. So glad to have you back in the Geek Den. So in my quest of trying to run a race in all 50 states, I decided to go ahead and check Oklahoma off my list with the Route 66 half marathon. It is a full and a half going on at the same time. On Saturday, they had the 5K and the 10K, but I was just sticking with the half marathon distance. So I made the drive from my home here in Arkansas up to Tulsa, actually stayed a little bit outside of Tulsa, and just drove into the downtown area where the start line was going to be. On Saturday, I went ahead and drove in and we went to the Expo to go pick everything up. First of all, when you first walked into the Expo, Williams, who is the sponsor for the entire marathon and half marathon weekend, Williams, they had gloves that they were handing out for free to absolutely everybody, which was great because it was a super cold weekend, and this was perfect so that runners could have a pair of throwaway gloves if they needed them. So you did see a lot of these tossed on the side of the road during the race, but as you can see, I kept mine. But just a nice pair of knit gloves with the Williams logo on them. After bib pickup on one side of the Expo, they sent me across to the other side of the Expo to pick up my race jacket, and in between was the whole rest of the Expo. It was a typical Expo setup. You had a lot of running stores that were there. There were some other races that were there that were promoting their races as well, including the Little Rock Marathon weekend coming up in March, and so they had all of their medals, including the giant marathon medal, so that you could take a look at what you would be getting if you raced. All of the stores that had setups there had everything that you could possibly need, an entire kit, hydration, fuel, everything that you could think of. So, you know, really good discounts on all of those. And then of course you had your standard merch area that had the race logo and race info and stuff like that. So if you wanted a finisher shirt or just a shirt that said Route 66 Marathon, then you could pick up that as well. And in the very back of the Expo was a stage where they would have speakers come up during different times and talk about just different aspects of running and racing and fitness and things like that. So I went to the other side of the Expo, and that is where I picked up my race jacket. And this is it right here, white. It's a full zip, zippered pockets, and it has the marathon logo here on the shoulder and right here on the sleeve. You have Williams, who is the sponsor. The material kind of looks like a waffle knit, but it's not. According to the label, this is what's called Centrel. It's microfiber packets with advanced knitting technology to channel moisture from the body and allow free flow of air for high performance activities. So it looks like waffle knit, but it is not. It's actually like closer to like little dots than it is squares. So very, very comfy, and they were really good about letting you try stuff on and making sure that you got the correct size. Everybody at the Expo, super friendly and super helpful and super talkative. So got a lot of great conversations in just with various people around the Expo. So after the Expo, went to get something to eat, went back to the hotel, and turned in just a little bit early to make sure that I could get some sleep. Woke up a few times through the night, but I still managed to get a decent amount of sleep. I felt really rested when I woke up in the morning. I did have to get up a couple of times and hydrate throughout the night. I don't know what it is, maybe about the hotel room that made me feel a little bit dry. My mouth just kept getting really dry, and so I kept getting up and I was drinking liquid IV through the whole night just to make sure that I could stay hydrated. Once I got up, I had my whole race kit that was laid out the night before. I didn't do a flat lay or anything. I had everything stacked up in the order that I needed to wear it. I went ahead and had my fuel and everything that I needed in my pockets so I could just pull everything on and get all those layers on because I knew it was going to be cold outside. The good news though was that all of the wind that was predicted did not show up. We just had like maybe a 2-mile-per-hour breeze that kind of came through every once in a while, but otherwise it was fairly still. It was also nice and sunny. Although it was still cold, you still had the sun out, so that definitely helped a lot. I went downstairs, grabbed an apple, drank some more of my liquid IV, and then headed off to the corral area. We drove into downtown Tulsa. My husband dropped me off so that I could walk to my corral, and made it in plenty of time.
And when I feel like this, I'm immortal. 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 Don't be scared. Just let me know.
Morning. Okay, I'm in my corral. It is cold, but I am getting updates on my watch on how Susie at I Run Things is doing in the Philadelphia Marathon today. She's running it with her brother, so I'm loving getting the updates. It's so fun. And I am about 25 minutes away from the start, so just gonna try and stay warm until then. It was definitely really cold there. Everybody had multiple layers on, emergency blankets and stuff like that. People who had run races the day before, if they were doing challenge medals and things like that, then they had their heat blankets left over from the day before. Everybody could see their breath in the air. We had people that were huddling together. So it was definitely very cold that morning. The overall mood though of the crowd was really great. Everybody was just happy to be there. I think people were just happy not to be racing in the heat, which is a definite plus, especially all the people that were there to do the full marathon. Running a full marathon in the heat, done it, it's not fun, but running it in the cold definitely makes things a little more doable when you're trying to get 26 miles off, or even when you're trying to do 13.1 miles. It definitely makes things just a little bit easier. Everybody started congregating in the corrals. The MCs were fantastic. They are the same MCs that Run Disney uses. So they were having a lot of fun. They were talking to the crowd a whole lot, pointing different things out. As part of the opening ceremonies, the members of the Cherokee Nation came together to perform a dance for everyone, which was just stunning. I wish I was a little bit closer so I could see it a little bit better, but from what I could see, it was just, it was beautiful, it was amazing, and I loved it. The race started right on time. They were great with the timing on that. Each corral started 5 minutes after the other. I was in Corral C, and for every single corral, they would point different things out that were happening in each corral. We were Corral C, so we were called the Party Corral. There was a man in my corral who had a t-shirt to show off that he was running his 300th marathon. I can't even imagine that 300 marathons, but this guy, he was there, he was ready to go. So they started us off. It was great because with every corral, they would shoot confetti cannons as we would cross the starting line. So it's confetti flying everywhere, and off we went. Now the race starts with a nice little downhill, but then it's going to go back up a little bit, and that was true for like a whole lot of the course, is that you had gentle ups and downs, but it was just that it was almost constant, and that's what really wore my legs out. I'm not sure what happened with like the second half of the marathon course. All I know is that the first half that we ran together, because marathon and half marathon split off from each other at around 11.5 miles. I just know we were going up and down and up and down. The very first downhill that we did was a little bit steep. Everything else was just kind of gradual, but it was definitely enough that you could feel it. And I don't know what it was, but my timer that I had to tell me when to run and when to walk, every single time I hit a run segment, it was on an uphill, and then I would walk on a downhill. It was so annoying. My legs were just really not happy with me because of that, but I kept pushing through. I said, you've done worse than this, you've done more miles than this, you can make it through. The first part of the course takes you through downtown Tulsa and out into a residential district with a bunch of historical houses and art galleries and things like that, and it is gorgeous. The houses there are so beautiful, and there were a lot of neighborhoods that decided that they were going to brave the cold and come out and hand things out to the runners. So you had people handing out like mimosas. There was a house where they were handing out Kleenex because everybody's noses were running from the cold. There were people, giving out candy and all sorts of stuff like that. So you had kind of those unofficial stops there of just families out there playing music and handing things out. Of course, you had your typical aid stations that had Gatorade and water. And then if you had a business or some type of a group, then you could also apply through the marathon to be an official block party stop. And these are people that would set up their own stations along the course, and they would give out, there was all sorts of stuff. There were whiskey shots, there was beer, there were burgers, more mimosas, Bloody Marys, champagne, different kinds of candy, sandwiches. I mean, just whatever they could think of, they would be out there and just part of the party, playing loud music and everything. And usually when there was going to be an official aid station stop, it was usually in like a park type area, and they have some beautiful parks there in Tulsa. And they would usually have a stage set up, and they would have live music playing, so you had a lot of people that were playing music. So there was a whole lot of that. Just the overall crowd support was great. It's kind of like you have a crowd support area, and then you have an area where, you know, the typical spectators could not get to because you're like in a residential area and things like that. And so it'd be a little bit quiet, but all the runners were talking to each other. Everybody was in really good spirits. And then you'd hit another area with a lot of spectators. It was super well supported, I felt. And it was great because I've been on some race courses before where like you have a really cool spot, you know, a really pretty spot, and then you go through like a whole bunch of nothing. That never happened on this course. There was always something nice to look at. So I would definitely recommend this as far as just there's always something to see. There's always, you know, nice neighborhoods, or there's spectators doing stuff. So definite plus on that. So I kept up the run walk. I was feeling really strong with that. I got to the halfway point, which brought us out of the residential areas and back into close to the downtown area.
Halfway, good pace, having fun, just refueled, meet you at the finish line.
Funny story about the refueling was that I accidentally squirted some on my hand, and so I was trying to finish my gel and lick all of the rest of the gel off of my hand so that it wouldn't be stuck all over my fingers for the whole rest of the race. So I was trying to do that while running, so that was awkward. So after around 7-ish to 8 miles, then you go on to kind of a river trail type area. It's this gorgeous paved park area that runs along the Arkansas River. And what we did with the half marathon was we followed that trail along the river along with the marathon. And the marathon, after they split off from us at around mile 11 or so, they turned around and came back down around that same route, only a little bit closer to the river, so a different part of the trail. So if you're planning on doing the marathon, then you run that trail area next to the river twice. It was around this time that I noticed that my hips were really not happy with me. They weren't like hurting, they were just a little bit sore, just a little bit tired and fatigued. It was like the inside part of my hips. So I'm not sure what was going on there. It could have been just the constant up and down of the hills. But thankfully, by the time we got to the river trail area, that was more of a flat portion. Then once we got to the end of that river trail, at the end of that, there was a tunnel that we were going to run through in order to get to the next part of the course. Tulsa Fire Department had their trucks set up there with the ladders all the way up and a gigantic American flag hanging down for us to run under, and then into the tunnel. Once we came out of the tunnel, we went a little bit further down the trail and then came up onto historic Route 66. As you can see, they had great big markers on the ground to tell you that's where you were, and off to the side, they were doing a little bit of construction there, but they have set up some original neon signs from back in the heyday of Route 66. And so they had some of those neon signs there that light up at night and show some of the businesses that they had there. So that was really cool to see. At Route 66, we went to the end of that bridge and then turned around and came back, and it was at that point that marathon and half marathon split. So we kept going straight ahead while the marathon split off to the left to go back down the river trail. So we came back down to the end of 66, and this is where it got a little bit dicey, because to get back up into the downtown area, you have to go up a couple of steep hills. And right at like mile 12 or so of 13 miles, like, you really don't want to tackle hills at that point, but you've got to do at least 2 of them to get back to the downtown area. And at that point, I had promised myself that if I was going to feel good around mile 10, that I was just going to run straight through. But with my hips bothering me and with those 2 massive hills that were coming up on the map, I knew that there was no way I was going to be able to run straight through. So I ran as much as I could and then just walked the uphills and promised myself that I was going to run that last mile, which I did. I saw a corner coming ahead of me and I said, that's where I'm going to start running. So I hit that corner and I started running until I saw that finish line, and that's where I picked things up and I crossed that finish line. So looking back at my performance, I ended up crossing the finish line at, I believe, 2 hours 34 minutes according to my chip time, which is definitely not my fastest. It's definitely not my slowest half marathon at all. My PR is still at 2:18. I feel like maybe I could have hit that if I'd been able to run those last 3 miles, but it just wasn't going to happen that day. I was cold, my hips were sore, there were hills. It just, things were just not lining up for me to do that. And I was happy to make it in 2:34, to be honest, because I've done so much worse than that before. And I felt like that was a good, safe time for me to get through and to actually have time to enjoy the course, because it really is a delightful, beautiful course. I would highly recommend this if you're wanting something to see throughout your entire run. After coming through the finish line, then of course they give you your heat blanket, and they said, promise me you're gonna stay warm. I said, okay, don't worry, I will. Which was kind of weird because with all the layers that I was wearing, I had started to sweat a bit while I was running. I had gotten to get a little bit heated, but I knew that I could not cool down fast. Otherwise my muscles were just gonna seize up on me. So if I could keep that blanket on me and cool down slowly, then that was definitely gonna help me out a lot. And then they gave me my medal. One thing you need to know about the medals at the marathon is that you get different medals for different things, and they will mark your bib so that they know what kind of medal to give you. If it's your first marathon, then you have a first marathon medal. First half marathon, you get a first half marathon medal. There's the regular marathon medal, the regular half marathon medal. If you are part of Marathon Maniacs or half marathon fanatics, then you get a different medal for that. So they have all sorts of various different medals that they will give out just based off of your bib. And I just have the general half marathon medal, and here it is. It says Williams Route 66 Marathon, Half Marathon, Tulsa, Oklahoma, 2022, half marathon here at the bottom. And you can see has the name of it right here, and half marathon right here. And on the back, they have the Williams logo, and they've engraved congratulations. So nice, good size medal, very shiny. My kids are a fan. And there you go. That is my Route 66 half marathon experience in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Check Oklahoma off of the 50 states list. And overall, I would definitely say that I would recommend this race. If you're looking for a nice race to run in Oklahoma, the vibe was great. Spectators were fun. There's plenty to look at. This is a really good marathon, I feel, for first timers, just because the hills, like I said, are just that gentle up and down. So if you can manage that and then still be able to kick those last couple of hills right at the very end, then you've got it set. The overall vibe, the support, everything is great. Would definitely recommend this one. Now, I do have another half marathon that's coming up in a couple of weeks, so you're going to want to make sure that you stay tuned for that. Meanwhile, why don't you let me know how your weekend went in running? And is this a marathon, half marathon, 5 or 10K that you would consider running in the future? Why don't you let me know down in the comments below? This is your second reminder that if you have not subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It is free, and you can also follow me on social media. All the links are down in the description. You can find me across all platforms under the name Running Geek Girl. Thanks so much for watching. I'm so glad you could be here. Can't wait to see you next time. Remember to laugh hard, run fast, and be kind. See you later.
It sound right, boy.